Here are 5 board game reviews. Alright everyone, welcome back to After Evenfall, a channel all about inspiring you to embark on adventures from home. Today we're going to go through 5 additional board games that I've played more recently and what I thought of them. So before I get started, I know it's been a while since the last time I posted. It's been probably 3 or 4 weeks. We've just been really busy. I keep thinking I'm going to be able to get back to it. And this might be an ongoing issue the further along I get in my pregnancy, just with how rough everything can kind of get toward the end. I'm going to try to post as much as I can, but it might be a little bit slow going forward, at least for the duration of the summer, maybe going into when we have the baby. But that all aside, let's get into some super fun board game reviews that I have for you today. Okay, so 4 of these board games that I am going to be reviewing today were sent to me by the company ivstudios, and I'm really excited about this. These games are ones that I was really looking forward to learning how to play, and I have had the funnest time getting to know them a little bit better and bringing them to the table quite a few times with a bunch of different people. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so board game number 1 that was sent to me that we played, and this one actually we've played probably most recently, and I was most surprised by, and that is Moonrakers, again by ivstudios. Moonrakers is a negotiating and deck building game where you are a ship completing contracts in hopes of being the first player to 10 points, or prestige, as I believe they call it in the game. So similar to other deck builders, you will have 5 cards that you draw at the beginning of your turn, and you will have to utilize those cards correctly in order to fulfill contracts that are available to you. You'll in essence try to match the amount of icons down with the amount that are required on that contract card. And you'll also have to roll hazard dice in the meantime that might take you down prestige points if you're not able to negate the effects of the hazard dice. So each beat contract gives rewards based on difficulty level. So some of the easier ones that you are able to manage on your own will have less value to you. They might have 1 or 2 prestige on them, and they might offer you just a few coins or credits, as opposed to giving you more lucrative rewards, which is what you would get if you went in on someone with a separate, higher value, more difficult to achieve card. Now, because some of these cards are more difficult to fulfill, and maybe you don't have enough contract, or maybe you don't have enough cards in your deck to fulfill that contract, you might have to turn to someone else at the table for assistance. And when I say might, I mean you will. It's inevitable throughout the game. Now, backtracking to the beginning of your turn, on your turn, you will be able to select a contract card. Now, before you go ahead and start playing cards toward that point value, you need to make sure that you can complete it on your own. And if you can't and you still want the card, you need to present the option to others in the group for them to go in with you on the card. Now, the catch on this is that cards can't always be divided evenly, right? So if I have a contract card that has maybe it'll give me 3 prestige and it'll give me 7 coins and it'll give me maybe 1 extra card to draw. Well, that poses an issue because those numbers can't be totally split evenly, right? So maybe I might negotiate and I'll say, hey, I'll take 2 of the prestige if you take 1, but you get more coins out of it and I'll take the lesser amount of coins. And then maybe you take the card since I'm taking prestige, and prestige counts toward your end game goal. Now, the other player will have the ability to come back at you and say, hey, I don't want to maybe do that deal. Maybe I want more prestige and give you just the 1 prestige and you can have the majority of coins, or you might negotiate out further throughout the game. There are also additional rules. So say I've beat a contract card, or that I've chosen to pass on my turn and I've decided to draw 2 objective cards instead, and then you also can purchase cards. So you can buy upgrades to your ship, or you can purchase crew members that will go into your deck as you're playing your turns. Some of my favorite upgrades have turned out to be the ones that give me more actions on my turn, which becomes a really big deal because you only get 1 action per turn unless you draw out of your deck a card that gives you the ability to have more actions. And that can really, really limit you, because if you only can do 1 action per turn and you don't draw a card with, I believe it's a lightning bolt symbol on it, and you can't get those additional 2 actions, you're kind of done for your round. And you just have to turn to the buying section. So after you beat your contract card, everyone on their turn on your turn, you get the ability to purchase and then you will pass and go to the next player after you're done. You will keep doing this, upgrading your ship, adding crew members, building your deck, and sometimes even with those ship upgrades, they'll allow you to add additional cards to your deck as well. You'll keep doing this over and over again until someone has gotten to 10 prestige. So circling around to my opinion on the game, this is kind of hard for me to explain, and hopefully you guys will understand, but every once in a while, I come across a game that just really clicks with the way my mind works, right? I don't know why. I don't know how to explain it other than sometimes I come across these games that just flow really nicely, and it clicks for me from the beginning, and I just play it and I totally understand it, as opposed to it being kind of a struggle to get through where I'm flipping back to the manual over and over again or not quite understanding the strategy of it all. This is one that flowed really nicely for me. It definitely fell into that category of it just clicked, it just made sense, and I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars, which I want you all to know is a really big deal, because this is another one of those space theme games that I was fully prepared to hate because I'm not a big space theme person, and I just loved it. That being said, I love negotiation. So if negotiation isn't your thing, if deck building isn't your jam, this probably is not the game for you. I really enjoyed it. I didn't feel like the negotiation was too difficult. I didn't feel like anyone got super stubborn and wasn't willing to budge, because everyone needed something on the card for the most part. If you have pulled a contract, there was always an incentive to want to negotiate and maybe help that person in the process because it also helped you. I really loved the puzzle element of trying to play your cards just right to maximize your turn. There's a lot of, okay, I have to play this card first, then this card, then this card, then this card. And on your turn, you're kind of just like looking at the order at which you have to play your cards, and maybe that allow you to draw more cards, or maybe you have cards in front of you on your ship board for upgrades that allow you to draw additional cards and do more things. And I thought that the puzzly element of trying to get all of that just right to complete a contract card was so fun. And it was so painful. It's so painful when you can't complete a contract card. When you put all that effort into it and you have to put all your cards over because you failed. That's always rough, but it's so rewarding when you can. This was a game that I could play over and over and over again and never get bored of, which is really rare for me. I am definitely one of those people who usually plays a game, learns a game, plays the game, moves on from the game, moves to the next game. I'm really a big bouncer arounder. I don't know how else to explain that. It's really hard to keep my attention focused, but this one is one that I just loved. It was so fun. And I could just circle back to it all the time. Now, as I say that, I would like to stipulate that as good of a time that I had, my husband and my mom, which are the two people that I played against, they did not like this game as much as I did. While I gave it 5 stars, my husband gave it 4, my mom gave it 3. It's definitely not her style of game. But at the same time, my mom is also really biased toward Star Realms. That's like her ultimate deck building game that she loves, and it's really hard to knock that from her pedestal, especially when she is not really big into other deck building games. I don't know. This one, she just likes the simplicity of Star Realms. I really like how many options there are available while still keeping true to the deck building element in this game. This would definitely be my preference over that other one. My husband, in the meantime, he and my mom just felt like the game dragged on for a while. I was winning, so I didn't feel that way. maybe that played into it. But I really enjoyed each round. I never really felt the game took a long time, I won't lie. It was like a 2-hour game for us. But when I get really in the zone in games, time almost doesn't matter. I really didn't notice it. It didn't bother me. And I felt like a natural progression. And like I said, it flowed for me. But again, it did not for the same for my husband and my mom. And I think a lot of that has to do with I went pretty far ahead really early in the game, and so they were playing catch up, but it was still really fun, and they still did like it. But yeah, I cannot wait to play this one again, and that is Moonrakers by ivstudios. All right, the next game that I have is one that I was really looking forward to playing I've been looking forward to playing for a really long time. It's one that I've had on my wish list, and it's been pretty high on my wish list for a while. I just haven't gotten around to buying it, and I am so grateful to ivstudios for sending it to me because I've been looking forward to it so much, and that is Veiled Fate, again by ivstudios. So in this social deduction game, you are gods moving 9 separate demigod offspring around the board in an effort to have your specific offspring gain the most renown. So this game is played over 3 ages, and during these ages you may be able to move demigods into, and when I say move demigods, I mean any of the demigods on the board. Now you are given 1 demigod that is yours, that is your offspring, but you have to keep it a secret from everyone else, or that's the goal of the game at least, to have your movements hidden kind of around all of the other movements that you're doing on the board so that people can't necessarily pinpoint exactly which character is yours. Now, circling back to your turn, you have the ability to move these demigods around, and say you put one on a quest. So when you place a demigod on a card, you have to vote by putting either a feather card or a scorpion card on that section of the board. Now, once the card is completely full of demigods and everyone's had turns to place cards down, you'll flip them over and you'll tally up the amount of feathers and the amount of scorpions. Now, whichever scorpions or feathers are in the majority, that is going to be the side of the card that rewards are based off of. So in your rewards, maybe one of them will move up 1 renown, maybe 1 demigod will move up 1 renown, maybe a demigod will have to flip a coin to see whether they're going to be banished to the abyss or move up a renown. There's also the ability to lose renown points, and the renown is all tracked on a dial around the edge of the game. And sometimes you'll have to flip these coins. There is the potential chance that you might be sent to the abyss. The abyss does take 2 turns to get out of, so if that's your demigod that's 2 turns that you will not be able to move your demigod really around a ton and maybe acquire points. Sometimes there are also punishments depending on where you are located at the end of an age. That all kind of relies on the card at the center of the table, and what it dictates extra points will be calculated on at the end of the round. With that same card, sometimes you'll also be rewarded if you're in certain locations. So maybe if I was in the abyss, I'd be knocked down a point or 2. And if I was in another zone or in the town, perhaps, I could gain 1 or 2 points from being there. So the game continues on through these rounds until you get the end of the 3rd round, on which you take a look at the board and see who is the furthest ahead, and that demigod wins. So I really enjoyed this game. However, the other 3 people that I had at the table, so it was me and my mom, my sister, and my brother-in-law, and they did not enjoy it as much as I did. It was really interesting to see how different everyone's strategy is in this game, because this is one where people can move a lot of different directions. For instance, my goal was to keep my demigod fully hidden the entire game. I was always moving another specific demigod at the same time that I was moving mine, to try to keep that a little bit harder to determine for others. My sister went the entire game without any of us being able to figure out who she was, which was really fun because we spent the majority of the game trying to where's Sammy? I don't know which one Sammy is. And we actually thought that she was, I believe it was the yellow or the red. And we kept sending it to the abyss thinking it was her. And she played it off like it was, but it wasn't. And did that help her win? No. But it was still fun to play in the game. My mom was a little bit more fuddy-duddy on whether she wanted us to know which one and it got to the point where halfway through the game we figured out which offspring was hers. And then my brother-in-law, we pretty much figured out in the first age which one was his, and it was not hard. He ended up winning the game though, so maybe it doesn't always totally matter whether you keep your movements hidden or not, but there is a lot of strategy to it regardless, and we probably could have banished him to the abyss a lot more and penalized him, but we didn't. It was still a really fun game overall. It is long just because I think we only played it the one time there. The other times we subsequently would play it, I feel like it would be a lot faster paced of a game. So my brother-in-law who won, I believe he didn't like it all that much. My mom really didn't like it. I liked it a lot. My sister liked it a lot better. But I think it really all comes down to patience level. Like, if you have the patience to really try to keep your character secret, and if you are motivated to do so throughout the game, you'll have a better experience than if you're not a patient person maybe and are willing to just kind of be like, whatever happens, happens. So like I said, I liked this game. I gave it a 4. I did not like it quite as much as Moonrakers, but I still really enjoyed my gameplay and I would be willing to play it again. However, I do feel like I need the right kind of people to play the game with. I love them all so much, but I don't think I would play this again with them. For sure not with my mom because she didn't like it, I don't think she would play it again with me anyway. But I think that it's definitely, if you liked deduction games growing up, like maybe some of the Minesweep or things like that, this might be a good game for you. If you're not into deduction games at all, I would avoid this one. But again, I really enjoyed it, so I don't know what more to say. And yeah, I would definitely play with maybe some more experienced gamers the next time that I play this game. And that is Veiled Fate. All right, so my next game is one that I hadn't really heard a lot about, but I've kind of noticed that it has a little bit of I don't want to call it like a cult following, but it definitely has a little bit of a following. There are people who really, really love this game. I kind of learned later, and that is Mythic Mischief. Now, Mythic Mischief is a chess-like game where you are moving your pieces around the board, trying to collect tomes that will allow you to upgrade your abilities, all while staying away from the tome keeper, who's kind of, in a sense, chasing you around the board. In the meantime, you are maximizing the asymmetric powers that are in the game, trying to put your opponent in the way of the tome keeper. So while you're trying to stay away from him, you're maybe swapping pawns with your opponent to put them directly in its track, or you're moving walls in the library to try to make it so that the tome keeper has to go a different route and get some of your opponents. And if he does, on your turn, you'll be able to go up in points. And ultimately, the player at the end of the game with the most points wins. And you're also, at the same time, trying to, again, move those walls and kind of pin yourself in such a way that your opponent cannot, on their turn, stick you in the way of the tome keeper. Now, the concept of the game is very simple to understand. It was very quick for us to pick up on. I will say, ivstudios, so I'm a big proponent of watching videos to learn how to play games. I know you guys are going to not love this, but I have a really hard time just reading a rule book. I kind of need that visual example in front of me as well in order to fully understand how to play the game. And ivstudios, on almost every single one of their games that we've played, had excellent production on their rules and how to play, like top tier. It was really, really easy to understand and pick up, especially after watching their videos. And it is a very easy to learn, hard to master game. And like I said earlier, it's very chess-like in its strategy. And it's really difficult to master if you and your opponent are matched in wit. However, if one of you is really good at chess-like games and one of you is not, that might be a little bit difficult because okay, so how do I say this nicely? So I have more of an aggressive strategy brain, and my husband tends to be more like into area control games where he can be really aggressive in that manner. And so he doesn't really play chess-like games a lot, and I did growing up. So for me, this game really made sense right off the bat, and I felt like I could be really vicious to him. And I kind of have a hard time when I'm playing a game and I'm just creaming the other person. It's not my favorite thing in the world. I like it to be balanced a little bit better. And this was definitely a game where I felt like I had the ability to really cream my husband. And so I probably didn't play as aggressively as I could have. I ended up losing the game, and he's going to say this is just an excuse for my loss. But I kind of did it because I just wanted it to feel a little more balanced wit-wise. And my husband's really smart. I don't want to say that he's not smart. It's just like sometimes your brain clicks with some things and sometimes it doesn't. And this was one that my brain, I think, worked a little bit better with and less so with his brain. But again, he won, so there's not much I can say outside of that about that portion of it. If you are into chess-like games, maybe games like Boop, this I would say is about a step up from there. The only catch is I feel like in chess, there's a lot of anticipation that you can kind of work out in your mind before you move your pawns, because really the other opponent is only moving one at a time. In this game, there's a lot of changes that happen between your first turn and your next turn, right? And those changes, because your opponent goes in between. So how do I word this? So on your turn, you will move around all your guys, shift all the walls, and then you take a turn moving the Tome Keeper toward a certain space on the board. And then your opponent gets to do that on their turn. And you don't get the ability, but before he moves the Tome Keeper, to readjust in between him moving his pieces and him moving the Tome Keeper, if that makes sense. So there's not really a good defense. You just have to really set yourself up on your turn to make it difficult and wasteful for them to move your pawns on their turn. And by the time it rolls back around to your turn, the whole board is completely different and you have to completely reevaluate where you are. Now, some people don't like that. I do. I think it's more fun to do spur of the moment strategy. If you're playing against someone who is a really contemplative thinker and a little bit slower to take the turns, that might be a little bit rough. I am more spontaneous, so I kind of just like to see where I'm going and kind of flit around the board as needed. So there are adjustments to play this game anywhere from 1 to 4 players, but my personal preference is a 1v1 game. Now, I don't do as well on teams. I tend to be a bit of a control freak, so I definitely like the 1v1 option. I have not played it solo, so I can't speak to how good that play is. So one thing I really love about this game is that there are asymmetric factions, but before you let that stop you from playing it, because I know some people hear asymmetry and they're just like, I don't want to do it. That sounds too hard. I don't really want to learn anything. It makes it sound kind of like Root. This is very easy to pick up on when it comes to the asymmetric factions. I would almost say that the asymmetry is kind of minor in the game. It's not... Everyone's still doing the same thing. It's just how you do it that's a little bit different. Really easy to pick up on. I mean, I would argue that you probably don't even need to pick up a rule book on the extra characters because it's all on icons right in front of you anyway. And I love how many different characters there are. There are monsters, there are vampires, there are witches in an expansion you can get, there are wizards. I know that they run a Kickstarter. I think it's fulfilling in around August that has like fairies and all these other creatures on it. And I think that's so exciting. The game itself already comes with a ton of factions. So it's really fun to have the additional ones added in. Again, you don't really need to have the additional factions. You can still play that. This has a lot of replayability as it stands. But if you wanted additional factions to collect, you can. Their Kickstarter also had a really cool wooden board, and I am kicking myself for not knowing more about this game in advance because I probably would have Kickstarted backed all the expansions for it. I did not. I'm going to have to wait until everything comes out, and hopefully they'll take their wooden boards to mass production. I don't know if they will or not, though. But I think that would be really cool. So this game, I know I mentioned that it was aggressive earlier. I just want to emphasize how aggressive it is. This is a very mean game. And if you are playing against someone who gets really, really heated over losing their pieces and you're going, because you are directly moving that Tome Keeper to try to kill other people or knock them out of the game. It's very confrontational. And so if you feel bad ridding other players from the board and picking on them, this is probably not the game for you. But if that brings you joy, if you just love creaming another person, and if you just love completely wiping them off the board on your turn, then this is a fantastic game. Everyone has 3 pawns. Sometimes it's not totally hard to knock all 3 of them off on your turn. Sometimes it is really hard, depending on the walls that are in place. I gave this game 3.5 stars. It was not my favorite game that I've played, but I did still enjoy it. I still would be willing to play it again. I probably would not play it against my husband again because he wasn't super interested in it because it's just not his genre. But I would definitely play it again against someone who is maybe more well-equipped for easy to learn, hard to master games. So I really enjoyed this game. Like I said, probably not my husband's cup of tea. My mom would really love this game, I think. However, I will never play it against her. Why? Out of sheer dread for her unyielding aggression in games. She is so mean, and I just feel like I would probably be really mad at her at the end of the game. And I don't get mad at games very often, but I think this is one that I would definitely be like really ticked off at. Or I'd just go right back into it and be just as aggressive as she is, and then it wouldn't turn out well for her. But if you're into simple asymmetric style chess-like games, with some abstract strategy to them, I think that this would definitely be the game for you. And that is Mythic Mischief by ivstudios. Oh, I forgot to mention, okay, I did get the deluxe. I was sent the deluxe edition with all the full upgrades on it. So everything is very deluxeified. I've got like the metal tokens for the Starfalls, and I have like holographic cards and stuff. Those are not included in the regular base game as far as I know. And so just heads up on that. And this game is Fractured Sky by ivstudios. So in Fractured Sky, you are controlling and placing your fleet of ships in an effort to collect Starfalls. Ultimately, you win the game by having the most Starfalls collected, but I'll get back to that in just a second. There are elements of bluffing, area control, deduction, and resource management throughout the entire game. Now, on your turn, you have a few different actions to pick from. You can, depending on the resources that you have available on your tray, you can build a market, and the markets allow you to take additional resources from an adjacent space that you've planted one of your big ships on. And again, like I said, adjacent, you can't just stick it somewhere and get whatever resource you want. It has to be adjacent. There are little lines pointing to where they are. There, you can also place a fortress, which does similar adjacent. It has a similar adjacent factor where if you have a ship placed on an area that is next to your fortress or is connected to it, then that ship is now given 1 extra point that it's valued at for the area control section of the game. There is also the ability to peek at Starfall cards, and those cards are tucked away on the side of the board throughout the game. They'll be added in. There will be more of them as the game progresses on, more Starfalls available. And you will be given the chance to peek at them if you pay a certain amount, and that will tell you where exactly one of the Starfalls is, which will help you to decide where to place your ships later on in the game. There's also the ability to peek at objective cards that are left on the top of the board. Those never change throughout the game, but they are kept secret until the end of the round that you're on. And when you pay to peek at one of those objective cards, it might help you to take an extra Starfall for a benefit that would later apply, such as having the most fortresses out on the board or having the most control in a specific area. Maybe it's like the ice area or the lava area. It kind of just depends on the objective card that's laid out in front of you. And there's also on your turn the ability to pay a certain amount to add an additional little ship to your fleet that's already on the board with the big ship, right? So if I had a big ship on the lava section, I could place this little ship out for a certain amount, and then that would increase my ship's power by 1 in that region. However, the little ships, they're called skimmers, those are taken back off the board at the end of the round. There are 5 rounds in a game. Everything else stays. So the market will stay on the board and the fortress will stay on the board as you're playing the game. And you'll find that those spaces that the markets and the fortresses are on fill up really fast, especially at the beginning of the game when everyone's trying to get a lot of resources. So the last action that you can take on your turn, which is probably the most common action that you'll take, which is the most common action you'll take, is placing one of your big ships out. The movement itself is free, but there are these magnets in front of you that are hidden from everyone else. You will take your ship off the board, you will select a number, and the magnet will snap onto the bottom of your ship, hiding the number, and then you'll place your ship out on the board. And the numbers range from 0 to 10. However, you cannot have more than 10 cumulative points on the board at a time, with the exception of the points that the fortresses and the skimmers give you. So I can't have more than 10 magnet points out on the board collectively. Like I said, collectively. So if I have an 8 out there and a 2 out there, my third ship has to be a 0. And if you put a 0 out, you don't really get anything from it unless you have a market attached or a fortress attached. And even then, the fortress kind of can be hit or miss on that one. Now, after everyone has placed all 3 of their big ships out, the round is over and you will have well, for us, we just take our ships off the board and we leave the magnets behind, so we can see who put what numbers in each region. So we'll just have a kind of little in-between phase where we're just clearing off all the ships and leaving the magnets. And then you'll go through each area and you'll see who is the more dominant power there. So at the beginning of that in-between phase, you will be flipping over the Starfall cards that are available for the round that you're in, and that will tell you exactly where the Starfalls go per region. So maybe there's one in the wetlands, maybe there's one in the meadow, I think is what it's called. There are a bunch of different areas that you can be in. And whoever has the dominant power in that area that the starfall is located in gets to take the starfall. However, if you put a ship on a space that a starfall did not end up going to, you still can take the resources if you're the dominant power. Now, the competition in this game is really tight. I love the bluffing section of it and the area control. I think it's so fun. And it has been a smash hit everywhere we've taken it. I've played it multiple times now. We took it to the library. So our library does like a game night I think they do it like once every month or once every 2 months. And we took it to that, and it was such a good hit. I played it with 3 other people there, and I had just the funnest time. And it kind of seems a little daunting at first. There feels like there's a lot of rules, but it's fairly easy to pick up on once you've started the rhythm going. It's just that first round that's a little bit hard to get through, and then after that, it's smooth sailing. Ugh. After that, it's smooth sailing. And like I said, I loved this game. This one is up there with Moonrakers. It's perhaps one of my favorite games that I've played or that I've learned this year. We just had such a good time playing it. And I really love that it gives you fantastic strategy gameplay while also giving you kind of a toy factor without being over the top kiddie, if that makes sense. Like, every piece is so nicely done. I love the magnets. Like, I could play with magnets all day. I could just stick my ship on. I don't know. Those are so addicting to just click your ship onto. Like I said, I gave this game 5 stars. I would play it over and over and over again. I have played it over and over and over again, and I love it. I cannot speak highly enough of it. Now, one thing I really love about ivstudios, and I really want to give a shout out to them for this because there are so few companies that do this, they are really good at making top tier components. Even if you're buying base versions of the game, you're still getting really good quality. And I love that they care so much about their storage spaces. Oh, it's so nice. I could just, chef's kiss. There is a space for everything in every single one of their games. It all comes very nicely packaged, very nicely stored, and their components, again, are like top quality. I love that. But anyway, so that is Fractured Sky by ivstudios. So this next game that I'm going to get into, I've mentioned a few times on the channel before. This is perhaps one of the most nostalgia-driven games that I own for me personally. So I am a little biased toward it. I am going to say that in advance, even though we haven't played it in a while. But that does weigh very heavily into the score that I'm giving it. And this game is Star Wars Epic Duels game. So in Star Wars Epic Duels, you pick a character to play. All the players are a little bit asymmetric, and you will place your character out onto a grid board in a strategic manner to get your game started. Each turn, you will draw and play cards. It kind of gives a little bit of a deck building vibe to that section. It's very similar mechanically to deck building games without actually being a deck building game because you are given the set deck. As I'm like, this is having a hard time. You can tell my copy's like super beat up. It's an old game, but it's had a lot of love in our house. So yeah, each turn you'll draw these cards out of your hand and you'll play them to maximize your turn. Your cards that you're given are different depending on each character that you've been given, right? So Obi-Wan Kenobi has a lot of cards where he can run up and slash and run away because he is a lightsaber character, so they tend to do better at close proximity. Meanwhile, they're also shooting characters. So characters with a gun kind of do better if they're from a distance, and then they can kind of like reach over, shoot, jump back to where they can't be shot at. It has kind of a chess-like strategy to it where you can only hit people if you're directly next to them or if you're in line of fire. In addition, there are also 2 dark side characters that have, so I believe it's Palpatine and Vader, and those characters have the ability to choke from a distance, so you can still be guarded. You can still have people around you that you've put up to keep maybe the shooters from attacking you. But also, even though you're a lightsaber character, you have the ability to attack someone from a distance, which is my preferred method of playing this game. Everyone hates playing with me. Just heads up. Everyone hates playing with me because I only really like to play Palpatine or Vader, and that's just my strategy. I like to just be a nuisance. I don't necessarily need to win the game. So like I said, this is a really, really old game, and it is definitely out of print. From what I've heard, it's since been remastered into the Unmatched series, which has, like, you can buy 4 characters per box and then play individual games. I have not played Unmatched yet. I own it. I have not played it yet, and so I can't totally speak to that. That's just what I've heard. What I like about Star Wars Duels is you already get so many characters in your base game. And when I say base game, I mean like just the game. We have in the past gone online and downloaded extra characters that you can get just that other people have kind of created for the game. And we've printed out cards for them, and we went and laminated them, which I know is a big no-no. In my defense, I didn't know at the time that it was a big no-no. It was probably one of the first games that I ever spent a ton of money on because, like I said, it was out of print, so we got it off of eBay for a substantial amount. And I laminated all of the cards to the game because we didn't want to ruin them, and I had no idea card sleeving was a thing. If I had known, I probably would have done that instead. Again, because this is a game that is out of print, if you would like to get a hold of it, you will probably have to go to either eBay or Mercari or something like that, just in order to get your hands on it. I do love some of the additional characters that we've gotten. We added in like the Ewoks, we've added in General Grievous, we've added in like Rey and Kylo Ren and a bunch of different extra characters there as well from maybe the newer movies. I have a ton of decks in here, although like I said, it does come with a ton. I'm going to actually put it on its side because I'm a little nervous about ruining the lid because it's kind of getting some lid lift on it. So when my husband was in undergrad, that was before we really had kids, and we used to have these two other couples that we were really, really close with, and they would come over to our house every day of every weekend for like almost 2 years, and with few exceptions. Like they were there from like 8 p.m. until midnight, Friday, Saturday night, Sunday night, and we would just play epic duels, Monopoly duel, epic duels is what we call this, Monopoly duel, and like Mario Kart, and that was it. But like primarily epic duels, to the point where us wives ended up getting a little bored of it, and we would go play Mario Kart while they would play epic duels. And like, I mean, all night. We were playing this game until 1 a.m. some days, just over and over and over again. We probably played it wrong. We had 6 people playing on one little tiny board, and it was so much fun, and I miss it so much, and that probably plays really heavily into the score that I've given it. I definitely give it 5 stars. The replayability is obviously high because we played it a ton. I probably played like hundreds of this game over the course of the years. It still holds a really good place in our hearts. It's always fun when we get on Zoom calls with them to talk about like, oh, you remember the days when we would play Star Wars epic duels for hours on end. So they say on here 2 to 6 players. We're guilty of playing it with up to 8. I think we've even played it at 10 1 or 2 times because we had 2 additional couples come. And it's still super fun. We actually went out of our way to print out bigger boards so that we could play with more people too. It's just been probably the game that we've put the most time and love and energy into. And for that reason, I can't give it anything less than 5 stars. It's one of those games that's probably graduated from my star system and has moved on to the Hall of Fame for us. I would argue that Root's up there too, and a few other games that I've played. This is one that probably takes the cake on Hall of Fame games for us, and that is Star Wars Epic Duels. Now, I hope you guys have all enjoyed the video today. I know I really enjoyed making it for you. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell if you liked what you saw. I really hope you all have a wonderful week, and I appreciate each and every one of you so much. It means so much to me that you guys have all subscribed and helped me to really grow my channel and really reach more people. I never in a million years dreamed that I would have more than 10 people interested. So I just want to say a big, huge thank you to every single one of you, because it just, like I said, it means the world to me. And I hope you all, like I said, have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you again soon here in the After Evenfall community.